Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled people story. My daughter Emily is my whole world. As a single dad, I've raised that girl since she was just a tiny baby. Her mom walked out on us when Emily was only 6 months old, and I've been both mother and father to her ever since. Emily just turned 5 last month. She's the bubbly, chatty type who makes friends wherever she goes. I swear that girl has never met a stranger. Everyone in our neighborhood knows Emily from her daily adventures, heading off to the playground, picking flowers in the community garden, or going door to door selling homemade friendship bracelets. That open, friendly nature is one reason I chose to move to this neighborhood 5 years ago. It seemed like the perfect place to raise Emily, surrounded by kind faces from all walks of life. We specifically picked the house right across from the neighborhood park, knowing how much Emily would love having that green space and playground right at her fingertips. For the first 4 years we lived here, everything was idyllic. Emily grew from a toddling baby into an independent, imaginative little girl. I worked hard to provide for her, but we never wanted for anything important. Our home was filled with love and laughter. But then 6 months ago, that all changed when a woman named Karen moved into the blue house next door. From the very first day, I could tell Karen was going to be trouble. She just had that look. You know the one. Entitled, superior, ready to judge everyone around her and make her opinions known. The day they moved in, she came knocking on our door to introduce herself. One glance at my worn jeans and Emily's messy hair was all it took. Karen's lip curled in obvious disapproval as she looked us up and down. Still, I tried to be neighborly and welcome her to the area, but I couldn't shake the bad feeling creeping over me when I saw how fixated she became on Emily. "What a precious little angel," Karen gushed, her voice dripping with exaggerated sweetness. She reached out to touch Emily's hair, but my daughter shifted closer to me. Always shy around strangers, she hid partially behind my leg. Karen laughed. "Don't worry, dear, we'll be seeing much more of each other from now on." With that ominous promise, she turned and flounced away, disappearing into her new home. I shut the door, an uneasy weight settling in my gut. Something about the way Karen looked at Emily didn't sit right with me. It was almost possessive. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing odd things. Karen was always out on her front porch watching whenever Emily played outside. She'd call out overly friendly greetings and try to coax Emily over to her yard. No matter how many times I told Emily to keep her distance from the strange new neighbor, Karen persisted. One day I caught her leaning over the fence, offering Emily a lollipop if she would just come give her new Auntie Karen a hug. When I rushed outside and confronted her, Karen acted innocent, but I could see the malice glinting in her eyes. I knew I couldn't turn my back for even a second where Karen was concerned. Things escalated when I was doing yard work one Saturday afternoon. Emily was riding her bike up and down the sidewalk, her favorite princess helmet secured snugly on her head. I had my back turned, trimming the hedge, when I heard Emily cry out in fright. I whipped around to see Karen gripping the handlebars of Emily's bike, trying to maneuver it towards her driveway. Emily's little legs flailed as she struggled to break free. Before I could even react, feisty Emily sank her teeth into Karen's arm. Karen yelped and let go, allowing Emily to pedal away at top speed. "What do you think you're doing?" I shouted, storming towards Karen with the hedge clippers still clutched in my fist. She took one look at the sharp blades and stumbled back a few steps. Nothing. I was just trying to keep her from riding into the street. You need to keep a better eye on your daughter, young man." I could tell Karen was simply trying to deflect blame, but I had no solid proof. Through gritted teeth, I warned Karen to never touch my daughter again unless she wanted a visit from the police. She scurried into her house without another word, but I knew this was far from over. Karen's behavior grew increasingly disturbing. She followed us around town, popping up at the library, the market, the park, essentially anywhere Emily and I went. I even spotted her lurking in the bushes outside Emily's daycare one morning. It was clear she had become obsessed with my little girl. The final straw came on Emily's birthday. I had planned her special day down to the last detail, inviting friends over for games, cake, and presents. The kids were all playing a rousing game of pin the tail on the donkey when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Karen standing there, an unsettling gleam in her eye. She held a colorful wrapped box and a bouquet of balloons. "I'm here for the party," she announced, pushing past me uninvited. My skin crawled as Karen handed Emily the gift, urging her to open it right away. Emily, sweet child that she is, smiled happily and tore into the box. She pulled out a frilly blue dress with matching hair ribbons. "Thank you, Auntie Karen," Emily exclaimed. "You're very welcome, darling," Karen cooed. "Why don't you go try it on right now so I can see?" Emily's eyes shone with excitement at the prospect of playing dress-up. Before she could bolt off to her room, I stepped in firmly. "I'm sorry, Karen, but you weren't invited today. You'll have to leave now." Karen's expression transformed in an instant. Contorting with rage, she lunged towards Emily. "She's my girl! I bought her a gift! You can't keep me from her, you rotten excuse for a father!" Emily burst into frightened tears. The other mothers rapidly gathered their children and hustled them out the door as I physically dragged Karen outside. Her screeching could be heard all down the block. "Keep your hands off my daughter, or I swear you'll regret it," I growled. With a final shove, I slammed the door in her twisted face. Emily was inconsolable, terrified of the deranged woman who had invaded her party. I realized it was truly time to take action before Karen could harm my little girl. I called the police and filed a report on everything that had transpired over the past 6 months. It felt like a huge weight lifting off my shoulders to have the authorities finally aware of Karen's unstable fixation on Emily. The police assured me they would keep a close eye on Karen and start building a harassment case against her. In the meantime, I took Emily out of daycare, arranged for her to be walked to school by trusted adults, and kept her close by my side whenever we ventured into town. Karen still lurked around, but kept her distance with police scrutiny intensified. I hoped her obsession might finally be dying down. Then came the absolutely horrifying day when I let Emily walk ahead of me just a few feet to press the button at a crosswalk. Out of nowhere, a white van came screeching up to the curb. The side door slid open and Karen burst out, sprinting towards Emily. I screamed and rushed forward, but it was too late. Karen snatched up my little girl and dragged her into the van, tires burning rubber as it sped away. My heart dropped into my stomach. I truly thought I might die right there on the spot. My baby, my whole world, stolen in broad daylight. I took off running down the street, dialing cop in sheer panic. Thankfully, the police had been anticipating something like this based on Karen's increasingly threatening behavior. They immediately put out an Amber Alert with a description of the van and license plate number. Law enforcement tracked the van to a rundown motel on the edge of town. The kidnapping had been Karen's last desperate attempt to make Emily her own. She never expected such a swift, forceful response. I clung to the phone, barely breathing, as the officers relayed that they had located Emily alive and unharmed. Karen surrendered without incident, deranged rantings about Emily being her rightful daughter, confirming her deteriorated mental state. I was reunited with Emily within the hour, crushing her in my arms and vowing never to let her go again. She trembled with fear and confusion about her Auntie Karen trying to take her away from her daddy. I feared she might be scarred emotionally, but Children's Services assured me they would provide counseling to help Emily recover. As for Karen, she was arrested and charged with kidnapping, stalking, harassment, and attempted assault. The evidence against her was so overwhelming that she was denied bail. Karen still tried to claim parental rights to Emily, but a DNA test proved without a doubt that she had no biological relationship to my daughter. At the trial, Karen's lawyers tried to claim she was mentally unfit and didn't understand the consequences of her actions. But the prosecution effectively argued that her detailed stalking and thorough planning of the kidnapping showed clear premeditation and awareness. In the end, Karen was sentenced to 8 years in prison. I know that might not seem long enough for the living nightmare she put Emily and I through, but the judge agreed that ongoing psychiatric treatment was crucial in her case. Emily and I slowly healed from the trauma over time. She still has some lingering fears and separation anxiety, but goes to a wonderful child therapist who has helped immensely. Emily has so much inner strength and resilience, she truly amazes me. We ended up moving across town to start fresh in a new neighborhood. The memories attached to that house were just too painful. I still glance over my shoulder more than I should when we're out in public, worried I might catch a glimpse of Karen. But my priority is making sure Emily feels happy, safe, and loved. She is my pride and joy, the most precious part of my world. I won't ever let anyone threaten to take her away or steal the beautiful childhood she deserves. As for Karen, I hope she receives the help she clearly needs. But I feel no pity for the terror she inflicted on my innocent little girl. The day she decided to make Emily her target was the day she forever lost her own freedom and sanity. If there's one thing I've learned from this nightmare, it's that evil sometimes hides in plain sight. I never could have imagined my friendly neighborhood and close community could harbor someone so disturbed and dangerous. But by staying vigilant and trusting my instincts, Emily and I prevailed over the darkness. Our scars may still linger, but the bonds of our love and family could never be broken by something as vile as Karen's obsession. She wanted to steal the light from my daughter's eyes, but instead that light glowed brighter than ever. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Circa January 2020, my friend made a stupid decision and bought a brand new car he couldn't afford. His insurance was about $400 a month, and he was making only $10.25 an hour, working as a shift supervisor at McDonald's. His car payment was $795 a month. Now, at $10.25 an hour, for 30 hours a week, that's a weekly income of about $300, or approximately $1,230 a month. So, yeah, my friend came to me for help because I used to sell cars and knew the industry pretty well. I reviewed his paperwork. The dealer did rip him off, but my friend was trying to find a way to get out of this mess. Ripping someone off isn't illegal, and though they overcharged him for the warranty and gave him a higher APR and added extras, none of that is illegal. I knew I could only get my friend out of this deal if they did something illegal. I looked at his finance application that my friend had signed, and it correctly listed his income, which turned on a light bulb in my head. No bank would approve someone for a $795 car payment if they were only making $1,200 a month. It doesn't make mathematical sense. So I started searching through his paperwork for the finance application the dealer submitted to the bank. Often, when you submit a finance application at a dealership, they will electronically reproduce the hand-filled application, which is pretty normal. However, on the application the dealer submitted to the bank, they stated that my friend was a GM of McDonald's and made $70,000. Despite having good credit, it didn't appear like the bank asked for proof of income. So I went to the dealership with my friend and told the sales manager that he needed to put me in touch with the GM because we were going to unwind my friend's deal and get his trade-in back. The sales manager and GM thought I was joking. Then I demonstrated how his dealership's finance department committed bank fraud. I showed the GM the finance app my friend filled out. I then showed the GM the finance app his dealership submitted to the bank and pointed out the income difference. My friend really made $14,000 a year, while the dealership claimed my friend made $70,000 a year. That's bank fraud. That's a felony. Let's keep this simple, shall we? The GM saw that his dealership was in a lot of trouble. The proof I presented was rock solid, and we all knew it. He asked, "So what can I do to make this right?" I replied, "Unwind the deal and give my friend his trade-in back." Unwinding the deal meant the GM agreed to cancel the deal, basically erasing it as if it never happened. The GM tried to avoid it, but I remained firm and reminded him that we could easily turn his life into a living hell with this documentation. He knew I was right, and besides, my friend needed a car to get to work the next day. The GM said he would check into it, and when he came back, he unfortunately said they had already sold my friend's trade-in. I said, "That's fine, unwind the deal, and let's put my friend into something as good or slightly better than what he traded in for." The GM asked, "So he'll buy a car similar to his trade-in?" I replied, "No, you'll give him a car similar to his trade-in." The GM said, "It doesn't work that way." And I responded, "It does when you commit bank fraud." The GM was upset with me, but I reminded him that I was being really nice, and this situation could totally get really ugly. Like felony-level charges ugly, like losing your franchise ugly. So yeah, this is going to hurt, but it's going to hurt less my way. The GM finally agreed, and he looked in his inventory. He told me they had a 2007 Focus with 10K more miles. I told him, no, the car you give my friend needs to be the same or better than what he traded in. The GM countered, "I'm giving him a free car." And I said, "No, you took his trade-in, you sold it, you made money on that sale. You also committed a felony in the process of selling him his new car, and now you are correcting that mistake. This isn't a free car for my friend. This is you correcting your mistake." The GM insisted that's what he was willing to do, but I told him that if he couldn't do better than that, we would go to a consumer protection attorney and have a conversation with them. My friend didn't want to go this route, but it was our plan B. We got up and the GM said, "Wait, give me a second. He then said, I have an 08 Civic, it has 5K more miles, but it's a Civic and not a Focus. I will unwind the deal on the new car and put your friend in the Civic at no extra cost. We agreed, the GM had the paperwork drawn up, the old loan on the new car was canceled, they took the new car back, but because it was already titled, they'd have to sell it as used, which sucked for them. And they gave my friend a better car than the one he traded in. For people asking why we didn't get a lawyer involved from the start, we could have done that, but courts take a long time, and this was a faster way to fix the situation. The next one is a petty revenge story. Backstory, circa 2017, I worked at a small 36-room condo hotel on Marco Island, Florida, and that property was owned by a small venture capitalist firm run by two wealthy siblings and one of their sons. I was brought on board by a colleague who was hired as the general manager. Since this was a small operation that had pretty much zero actual industry knowledge or expertise, it was basically the GM and myself who were responsible for bringing real changes to the property, while also wearing multiple hats and doing the job of several roles with our industry experience. There was only one other office employee, a curmudgeonly old lady. Ironically, her name was actually Karen LOL, who basically just did the billing for unit owners and sat in the back when she could. I myself was responsible for not only the day-to-day front desk presence, phone presence, concierge presence, assigning daily housekeeping duties, and running a brief night audit, but most importantly, also managing the business revenue strategy competitive set and online room inventory with our own website and major OTA companies like Expedia/Booking/Trivago/ etc. 2017 was a record year for us, and my revenue strategy earned the company several tens of thousands of dollars more than previous years by comparison. Then crap starts slowly hitting the fan Q2, Q3. My colleague, the GM, resigned due to personal issues completely unrelated to his work performance. That brought the office staff down to two people, Karen and me. Karen had this month-long trip to Italy planned like 2 years in advance, so she was going to go regardless. Karen flies out in the midst of the news that there's a bad hurricane a few days out from landfall. Cue Hurricane Irma. For those unaware of hurricane grading, Irma made landfall in the U.S. as a Category 4. That is staggeringly powerful. For reference, Katrina, which devastated New Orleans in 2005, was also a Cat 4. Needless to say, everyone was on high alert and made plans to evacuate. During my evacuation, not on the clock or being paid by the company whatsoever, the firm's accountant called me on my personal phone asking me to walk her through the steps of how to remotely run the property management systems audit. With hotel computer systems, the day doesn't actually end until you tell the system that the day is over, and that it's time to run reports, tally up the numbers, so if no one is there to do the audit, the hotel will permanently be stuck on a previous day. I spent about 2 hours on the phone with her while evacuating from a natural disaster, and I was never compensated for it. Irma ended up making landfall on the island I worked on, and the entire surrounding area lost power for about a week. We all returned to devastation, some of our rooms on the top floor having their walls and roof blown out, and slowly trying to pick the pieces back up. My hours were cut from 40 per week to about 16 per week, as the damage from the hurricane drove business way down. I was beginning to struggle financially, and I was forced to use all my PTO and vacation days I had earned up to this point to keep full paychecks coming in, as I was just some single 24-25-year-old guy who lived alone, and the company offered absolutely zero roadmap for getting back to full-time compensation. I sent the CEO, who I spoke with every week in revenue meetings, an email explaining the situation and asking for a possible advance to make ends meet for the time being. The email I got back was basically one sentence to the effect of, OP, we'll be open again soon, thanks. Bold strategy, let's see how that plays out for you, considering I'm the literal only person running the hotel operations right now. Within a week, I secured an interview for a better-paying job closer to home, crushed the interview, and kept it completely to myself. The CEO's brother, the CFO, had flown down to be on the property for the first day of the reopening where business started to come back to normal. The day before the reopening, while in the office, I got a call from HR at the new company confirming the job offer, and to stop by later that day to finalize everything. I called the CFO and asked him to come down to the office because I wanted to talk. The second he got there and asked what's up, I told him I was resigning effective immediately. Him. OP, you realize that'll make it hard for us to open tomorrow, right? Me. Nothing personal. Just like your company has financial concerns that prevent you from keeping your only employee here to run the hotel, I also have financial concerns that prevent me from staying here as I have bills to pay. You'll be open again soon, don't worry. He gritted his teeth and said, okay then. I handed over my key to the property, got in my car, and never looked back. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I work for a tutoring company, which we shall call Blue. Well, this company employs a lot of tutors across many different subjects, some for younger audiences and some for older audiences. For the younger audiences, the topics needed to be reviewed are in one long chain with one main heading, lots of little subheadings, and in each subheading, lots of little topics. This works great for younger audiences because there is a limited number of topics, and they all kind of blend together. For older audiences, those with more advanced topics, there are 4 units, each with subheadings, and within the subheadings, there are the topics. Nothing really goes together, so you have to either have the location of each lesson memorized, or be quick with your scanning ability. We tutors have asked for a search function so that we can find topics quickly, but the company kept saying to use Chrome's inbuilt find function. For those that don't know, this only works to find words on the screen. The way the tutoring service is set up means that find will not find words in subheadings because they are not exposed on the screen. Once exposed, it will find them, but by then, what is the point? It felt like no matter what we told the tech company, nothing was going to change. So those of us with busy lives set up a list with all of the topics for each of the different state curriculums in a text or Word file and search that way. It took over 5 years, but we finally got a search function for the topics for older audiences. We finally got what we wanted. Everything happy now? No. The company gave us what we wanted, but did it in the most annoying way possible. They complied, but were total evil monsters about it. Now we can only have 1 unit subheadings displayed at a time. To move from unit to unit, you have to change units in a special way, and this can take up to 1 minute to do. There is a search function available, but it is total trash. To find a specific lesson, you have to type in the entire lesson name. No shortening it. So, equilibrium will not find equilibrium in aqueous solutions, nor equilibrium constants. So thank you, Blue, for making our jobs just a little bit harder and much more painful for the clients. We totally appreciate it. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.